Now, with the most famous words in motorsports, great friend of the show. You've heard her here several times. She has her own podcast and also writes for the Porsche American Group, Miss Lalita Chemello.
Drivers, start your engines.
You are now listening to the fastest show on IE Sports Radio. My name is Darryl Kinsey Jr. I'm welcoming you to take another lap of the extra mile for today, July the 9th, 2020. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Hope everyone's having a good post-4th of July week. I hope no one went out somewhere too dangerous, as we got to calm down when it comes to COVID-19, as we already saw last week. How you can end up losing your short track very fast by not adhering to the COVID-19 social distancing guidelines, but more on that later. And before I go on, continue on that little rant, we welcome my co-host. You just heard her, Miss Lalita Chemello. Lita, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me back, Darryl, and also hello to everyone out there.
Yes, it's been a while since we had Lita on. Lita writes for Porsche Panorama, by the way, the magazine, all the Porsche enthusiasts, or the Porsche owners, I will say, get to read. So she freelances for them. She gets her articles in there as well. She has a podcast as well with her boyfriend, talking all things motorcycles, which is really awesome that you guys get to do
Well,
that.
It's not just motorcycles. It's like cars and racing and stuff too. So it's kind of whatever we feel up to. Our actual next episode coming up is going to be on Extreme E as a sneak preview for everyone. So just as a heads up. But yeah, it's been fun. It's a fun little activity we've been wanting to do, and a different side of something that we've been doing here at IE Sports. So gave it a shot, and it's been fun. I love it.
Glad you've been enjoying it. What is, without stealing your thunder, any, what exactly is Extreme E?
So Extreme E is a new motorsport coming. It debuts in 2021. And it actually has it has 6 teams, players from, you would recognize from the Formula E series, also including Andretti Autosport and Chip Ganassi Racing. They have new electric vehicles. They're electric SUVs that are meant to be able to kind of travel in extreme conditions, and they are going to extreme locations around the world in racing in 5 specific areas, like the rainforest, the Antarctica, things like that, to demonstrate what climate change has been doing to the world. So it's a little bit of an initiative for the race against climate change, but it's also just a really cool extreme, like rally meets Dakar meets electric racing all in one. So that episode will air next week. So for those who want to hear it, it will be up next week. But yeah, it's a really interesting series that's coming out. There also they mandated a rule that there are 2 drivers, each one drives a lap of the large course, and it has to be 1 male and 1 female driver. They've only announced 1 driver as of right now, and happens to be a female driver, and she is for Chip Ganassi, which is kind of a groundbreaking thing for Chip Ganassi Racing, not only getting into electric but having a female driver on their team. So it's really cool. I obviously love the eco-friendly and eco-conscious aspect of it, and obviously the electric racing portion of it too, but just the concept behind it is really cool. Like, I'm been kind of an underground fan of rally racing and trying to get more into that. So this is kind of everything just poured into one mold.
Cannot wait to check that episode out next week, and I can't wait to check out Extreme E next year.
Darryl?
Yes?
pause, man.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay.
I can't wait to check out Extreme E next year. It basically reminds me of, like you said earlier, the electric Dakar, as obviously every motorsport is going to start going electric at some point because a lot of auto manufacturers are stopping the production of internal combustion engines because a lot of these manufacturers are in Europe, and Europe is starting to mandate no more ICE powered cars. So we're going to have to see motorsports evolve if it wants to survive, and we're seeing more series like Formula E. I know Tesla was supposed to have their own little touring car series. I have no idea what's going on with that. We have the Jaguar I-Pace and now Extreme E. There's also Electric Moto E, even though that got, delayed because of COVID-19, because COVID-19 doesn't allow us to have nice things. But anyway, continuing on with this show.
Ain't that the truth for 2020?
Exactly.
You can no longer have nice things.
Yep. We'll start with the races. We had Austria and Indianapolis represented this weekend. We'll start with Formula One, where I just have written down simply Hamilton's bad day and Ferrari's bad week. As Lewis Hamilton, he had all the good stuff with basically forcing basically forcing Formula One to change, and I do not know what's causing that. Which, in fact, here's what we'll do. We're going to take a quick break and check this out. We have some technical issues on our end, so we'll be right back after this.
Were you listening to a great game on USRN, but then the Wi-Fi crashed in the final seconds?
Yeah, it's weird. It was like a little bit of like a robot-y kind of sound, like we get occasionally.
Well, then you need to go check out.
It's like, sometimes it takes a minute for it to like kick in and start working, and
that you don't want to miss. How do I get there, you ask?
I don't know if that's
you
you or me or...
Boom app and look up Ultimate Sports
I did not
Radio,
hear anything on my end.
Or simply go to audiobook.com/Ultimate Sports Radio. And as always, thanks for listening and making USRN one of the most talked about sports networks on Mixler.com.
Hey guys, it's Blake Henley, better known as H-Town Blake to some of you. Happy to announce that Bases Loaded is back in full force. We'll be bringing that high heat every Tuesday night here on IE Sports Radio. So come home, get ready, dig into that batter's box, and see if you can chase that high heat, baby. So we'll be coming to you live with all the stats, all the rundowns, all the division rivalries, and every team that's going to make the playoff push to get to that one and only October and get to the pinnacle of what baseball is, to hoist that Commissioner's Trophy when it's all said and done.
Hey, what's up, sports fans? You're looking for a different type of sports talk show, something you haven't heard before? You gotta check out the BS3 Sports Show every other Saturday on 2 Live Stews Radio, 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern. Sports talk at its finest. Always have great guests, playing some good hip-hop. You don't want to miss it. Make sure to tune in to the BS3 Sports Show every other Saturday at 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern.
And we are back. Hopefully the technical issues have been solved. Basically had to do a quick virtual plugging and unplugging of the wires on Spreaker and things like that. Skype has also been giving a pain in the butt the last couple of weeks. We're going to have to figure out something about that. But we are back here in the Extra Mile, and as we were saying before everything went to heck in a handbasket, Hamilton, he had a good day where he kind of had a good week where basically had to drag the rest of the sport into recognizing that, racial issues are a thing, and took Bernie Ecclestone to task, which a lot of people were happy about. Then he goes to Austria, pretty much dominates up until they have a problem with they, as in Mercedes, have a problem with their gearbox, as the vibrations of the Austria circuit were causing sensor failures, so they had to slow down, which it didn't matter because Lita, they slowed down with a sensor failure, and we're still 11 seconds up on the second fastest car, which was Albon. And then the safety cars hit. We had safety cars back to back as the Mercedes were basically demanded to stay off the curbs. And they go into turn 5. Albon goes around the outside. Hamilton tries to battle with him, basically keeps his foot in it, ends up sending him around. Everyone got a flashback to last year at Brazil, and Hamilton gets a 5-second penalty. So he had a bad day. I'll just say it. That, in my opinion, it was not the best day for the 6-time champion.
No, and it was interesting because he has this tendency to always be the dominant one, and you and I even had this conversation watching the IMSA race last weekend, talking about, Hamilton will probably do pretty great because it's Hamilton and Mercedes and whatnot too. So it was kind of interesting to see that not be the case in the season opening of F1. It was not his best day. Not to say that he didn't have a great drive, just it seemed like he just had a bit of everything against him over the weekend.
Yeah, he really did. And unfortunately ends up finishing 4th, which for Hamilton might as well be 19th, the way that he's expected to win. But I honestly don't expect him not to, finish that far back every week, because he ended up getting a 5-second penalty. Also, there were like 3 different safety cars in this race, including one back-to-back, because Kimi Räikkönen's tire decided on the restart, I don't want to race anymore, and fell off his car.
I laugh every time I watch it.
Like, unless that's going to happen this weekend, I think we're going to see Hamilton and Bottas pretty much dominate what they were doing for 3/4 of that race. On the other hand, Ferrari, woof. They were in bad straits until the safety cars and all the jumbling up basically allowed Charles Leclerc to get the second, but Lita, it wasn't that close at all. They're bringing some upgrades to Austria to hopefully fix it, but we thought they were slow during the test. And that was before we got to, actually race. Now that we see them in anger, Ferrari's in trouble this season, and more than usual.
I was going to say, how's that different from any other season?
Well, at least the last seasons, they were battling, trading wins with Mercedes. Now it looks like they're behind Red Bull, and maybe even the baby Mercedes car with with Racing Point, if you want to go that far. They were really slow. And I don't see them fixing that in a week.
It's Ferrari, so everything takes time. Italians. My dad will appreciate that joke. But regardless, it's not exactly the best. Ferrari has been known to be a little bit on the struggle bus with this engine change years ago, and obviously proof of that is Mercedes dominating them, and it's just kind of amusing now to watch, Mercedes be like, look, we did it again, and Ferrari just can't figure out where they went wrong, but we're all like, this is where you went wrong. So now we have them back here again to, try this again, and I don't know, they're so far left field, I don't know if they're going to be able to. They've gone so far off the track, they might as well just leave the race and call it a day. And I'm not saying it's quite gotten that bad, but I feel like we were talking about, the luck that came with this particular drive is immense for them, but I don't know. I've just gotten to the point where nothing about Ferrari disappointing everybody is surprising, and it's just now the ongoing joke of the internet. So, with Sainz next year, will it change? Who knows? No. They got to get the car fixed first. Otherwise, Sainz and Leclerc have their work put out for them. And not only that, but if they do manage to get some podiums off of whatever monstrosity Ferrari can create for this and next year, you do have to give them a lot of credit for taking a crap car and putting it on a podium. So,
yeah, but on the other side, it was a podium where they needed everything to just devolve into chaos. And can we really expect that this coming week, where everybody now understands what the track is doing to the cars and will make adjustments, mainly stay off the gosh darn curbs? And can they find the speed? Because they're going to have to find seconds, plural. Like, they are behind, and I don't know if a wing change is going to do it. They need, like, fundamental upgrades to the engine, because it just looked like they had an anchor tied to them. Meanwhile, their chief rivals...
the engine, it's the entire package in general. If you can't hit a curb in Formula One, which everybody does on every turn for their lines for their driving, like, what are you even doing there?
Yep. And Mercedes has that issue as well with their gearbox, but here's the difference. Mercedes can stay off the curb and still be 11 seconds faster than everyone. Ferrari stays off the curb, and they're not even in the left field of everybody else. So it's a struggle that they're going to have to get figured out, and I don't think they have a lot of time to do it. I don't see them bouncing back this week. Do you?
Oh, God, no. Again, Italians. We have a stereotype for a reason. We're not the fastest people.
Yeah, this week is going to be Verstappen and Hamilton's revenge, as Verstappen fell out of the race with a technical issue and Hamilton's 5-second penalty. Those two are going to be extremely angry drivers, and I would not want to be facing them this week at Austria. So we flash back,
having things up a little bit, but
hopefully, but we'll see. So we flash over to the United States, where IndyCar and NASCAR both had their races at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, a doubleheader in one day between the Xfinity Series and IndyCar. Now, Lita, this was made due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but I think they found a good recipe to take the IndyCar Grand Prix and make it its own thing with this doubleheader, rather than having it as this weird opening for the month of May, which is supposed to be, you know, all about the oval, but we're having this road course race at the beginning. What do you think about, you know, possibly making this permanent on July 4th with Indy and NASCAR?
So I'm a little divided on it because, you know, the month of May, it's the month of May for a reason. You know, you have, you know, obviously there's 1 week where there's nothing, but, you know, you've got the Indy Grand Prix, then you have qualifying and bump day, and then you've got the race the weekend after. And it's just, I mean, journalists live there for the entire month, basically. It's something special. I've done every weekend. There was 1 year I went every weekend, and it is really, it's just, there's nothing like it. It's very fun. On the other hand, though, thinking about the Brickyard and the Indy Grand Prix, that it was the Brickyard, right? I don't know why I'm second guessing myself on that.
Yeah,
Brickyard. Yeah, you know, granted, going from oval to the Indy road course is a little interesting, and I can't imagine what the setup between all of that would be like. But I think, in honesty, both races could use the support, because you have Brickyard 400, which has been dying substantially over the last decade plus,
and then the Indy Grand Prix.
And oh God, at least, and I know you and I have gone into that over and over beyond, especially in comparison to the Indy 500, you know, the two oval staples of that raceway, and yet there's a remarkable difference between the crowds of both. The Indy Grand Prix as well, yeah, it's on the month of May, and and maybe that's what hurts it, because a lot of people are going for qualifying and the 500 later in the month, so you're not going to get as many people to travel out there, go home, travel out there. They're not crazy like me. I'll put it out there, but it doesn't quite have a crowd there either. Like, I think I spent like $80 to get a seat in like one of the covered stands that weekend to see it, and it was like empty up there. Like, there's really not a lot of people there. And so you take two struggling races and put them together. I feel like it's a great thing. Now, experimenting with it during COVID and not really getting to do much of the spectator aspect of it, there's only so much we can pull from that. But I think it could be beneficial to both. Would I hate seeing a race getting pulled from the month of May? Yeah, I kind of would, but I honestly think it might be really good for both Indy and NASCAR to do it. I mean, that's just me, though. What are you thinking on this?
It could definitely spice up this July 4th weekend for NASCAR, where, the Brickyard 400 has been dying a slow, torturous death ever since the debacle in 2008. And I don't want to hear about, well, the racing's not good, so nobody went. The racing was never that great for stock cars at the Brickyard, and they still packed the place because it was Indy. What happened is the same problem with the 2005 Indy GP for Formula One happened to NASCAR, and you're seeing what would have happened if Formula One continued to go to the racetrack afterwards. The crowd falling off and falling off and falling off as everyone's ticked off about what happened, and now it's dead. You've needed something to revitalize that weekend forever. Maybe this can help, because now you can sell tickets to all three, and then people get a chance to see the beautiful renovations that have been done to that speedway by Roger Penske, as Lita and I were talking about on Saturday when we were watching the sports car race from Daytona, that Roger Penske put a lot of money into that racetrack, and that may be influencing a decision we're going to talk about later. But the
Do you think that it would be... Oh, sorry.
So I think that it would be great for both if this race stayed on this weekend, because now you build up the audience of both, and hopefully you'll have some intermixing of the audiences, hopefully, but who knows? Racing fans can be fickle sometimes.
It's true. Now, do you think, because there were a lot of problems with it being really warm for IndyCar this weekend, let alone, I'm sure NASCAR wasn't as comfortable either, but maybe more comfortable than an IndyCar. Do you think that it would, I think July 4th, a lot of people are traveling or, go to see fireworks or go to do things. So a race isn't exactly like their go-to thing, I feel like, anymore as well. Do you think it would almost be more beneficial to have the two races, but to have them at the beginning of the month of May, like around the Indy Grand Prix time, just to add a little something?
See, the problem with that is now you are bringing NASCAR into the month of May, and I can already hear the angry typing of IndyCar purists right now. So I don't know if that would go over well. I would love to see it, but I don't know how you bring NASCAR and add them to... You would basically be making them a sideshow to IndyCar's greatest month, and I don't know how keen either side is to do that.
That's true, but at the same time, if you are an IndyCar purist, then why aren't you at the Indy Grand Prix in the first place? Like, I think, if anything, I almost think it'd be beneficial for both sports, because you get to have NASCAR as kind of like a supporting feature act for the month of May. Because obviously they're not going to get any attention for the Brickyard 400 at this rate regardless. So there's that. But it also gives IndyCar an opportunity to bring people into IndyCar that have never been in IndyCar during one of the greatest months, where it's like, all full speed ahead. Like there are no stops given. It's just everything is like as great as it can be. I mean, why not bring a series in to help grow that crowd, but also maybe to entice some people to be interested in NASCAR with everything that's changing.
I think it would help, especially as they're looking for a new audience. It'd be a great way for cross-promotion, and they're actually going to do another one at Gateway with the Truck Series and IndyCar coming together to race on the same day there, as both series are trying to figure out, what they're going to do with this COVID-19 deal and try to, get their seasons in at this point before the second wave hits. Because I think once we get to October, November, we're done for any sort of sporting activity. So they're trying to get these seasons in right now, which I don't know what that means for NASCAR, because that could end up being in the middle of their playoffs. So do they try to push through, or do they go and just finish on Halloween? We'll see as we go on into the year. But strategy ended up shaking up that IndyCar Grand Prix. The Pennzoil... No, sorry. It's the IndyCar Grand Prix. Sorry, the Pennzoil race was the Xfinity Series race. But strategy ended up shaking up that race after Oliver Askew ended up hitting the wall. Will Power, who always seems to dominate this race, got stuck in the back, making a pit stop on a track that is very hard to pass under caution. Or when he made this pit stop under caution, got stuck back in traffic on a track that is very hard to pass on, then had issues on the pit stop. Well, he ended up finishing 20th. Scott Dixon ends up picking up the win. And Lita, usually around this time, we see Scott Dixon charging in the second half of the season. Now he's charging at the beginning of the season. How far do you think he's going to get out, and do you think anyone's going to be able to catch him?
And that guy, when it comes to his racing ability, ages like a fine wine. It just seems like he's one of those that just gets better with age, and I don't understand how it's working, but I'll take it. I will say, one, it was really nice to see Dixon win, because he usually is at least on the podium for these races and never wins. And it's been, 7 years, and it's between Will Power and Simon Pagenaud all those years. So the fact that we finally have somebody aside from those two individuals winning the race was incredible. I would not be surprised if he got the championship this year. I'm a little disappointed because I wanted to see Alexander Rossi get off to a better start, because I know we've been talking on and on and on about him having, this being his season, and it just didn't really start out that way. So now it's, where do we go from here? But I can see Dixon definitely getting ahead this year.
Yep, that is going to be something to watch this season. Also, we saw that Marco Andretti, another bad week for him, and saw a group talking about, what is the future for Marco. It's been a while, and he hasn't done a whole lot. So, I mean...
And I hate that because of his part of it is his last name. There's a legacy that goes with it, but at the same time, what was it? I follow it. There's a Twitter handle out there that is, did Marco Andretti win this week? And it will tweet when he does not win. But a couple weeks ago, it did tweet his last win was like, did Marco win this week? And it goes, no, but this day, 10 years ago, he won. And it was like his last win that he ever had. Mm-hmm. And it was just so painful, but funny to read. So imagine being in his shoes right now. Is your career really going to go in any other direction? Because it doesn't seem like he's destined to be a champion, or that he's at least in IndyCar. I'm not saying that he's not talented and he couldn't do it elsewhere, but I don't think IndyCar is going to be his place for that.
Yeah, but has he also gotten to the age where the change of scenery is not going to matter?
Well, that's almost a little hurtful, Darryl, because he's my age, but...
Okay, well, he's a race car driver and you're not. It's kind of different.
But from a race car driver's perspective, I want to say, okay, so in a lot of cases, yes, at 32, you are kind of considered an older driver, especially as we're seeing a lot of young talent. And I feel more than usual getting pulled up into these series. Look at F1 and IndyCar. How many young faces have we seen that are under the age of 23? It's a lot.
A lot.
Now, but you also have to think about who is actually racing out there. We have, and I mean, sports car racing is one thing because you have a lot of older drivers in that regardless. But you also have, Mario Andretti was almost well into his 50s when he was still racing for IndyCar, if I remember correctly. Elio Castroneves racing into his 40s. Tony Kanaan. Now, Castroneves was still actually doing well. Kanaan, I blame that on Foyt's team, but whatever. Not my decision. That was his career decision. And you've got Dixon. I mean, Dixon is 40. You just won the race. I mean, doing fantastic. Will Power is getting up there in age too. So we can't necessarily put that aspect on there because we've had people that they weren't doing well in one of the series and that kind of aged out of that, but went to another one and did fantastic. And, and sometimes it doesn't work out that way. So I do believe that Marco Andretti does not have there's too much good talent that's way better than what he's been able to do for him to be close to a championship. Maybe there might be another win in there somewhere. I would be hard pressed to believe whenever that happens, but beyond that, I don't know. I think part of the problem is you have two generations ahead of him that were good in IndyCar racing. So that can't help with the pressure of performing because he's done really well with qualifying and practices, but it's like being a bad test taker. You put any sort of pressure on him, he chokes. So maybe it is time to start looking at other racing efforts. I mean, Andretti Autosport has a lot of hands in a lot of racing series now. It'd be kind of cool to see him do something like a Formula E or Extreme E or...
I was just about to say Formula E, actually.
It's not that he's not... I mean, he's done well. I think part of the problem is that he's racing for his dad's team under a name that holds a lot of prestige in IndyCar, whether it's his father or his grandfather. And I can imagine that kind of gets to you sometimes when you're behind the wheel.
It's unfortunate. And hopefully Marco will get going because the racing world is a lot better when there's an Andretti that's racing well. And we continue the NASCAR race. Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick continue to go step for step when it comes for wins. But, Lita, there were a couple of hard impacts with the walls at Indianapolis. And very rarely is there a soft impact with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway walls since they're 90-degree corners, and you lose a tire means you're going a lot further than when the corner is rounded. But big, heavy stock cars on a track that puts a lot of load on the tire and the car, and with cars that carry a lot of corner speeds or high corner speeds when it comes to NASCAR, usually creates a lot of tire issues. We saw that again last Sunday. But these guys really knocked down the wall, and what I will say is thank goodness for the safer barrier, because a lot of those wrecks would have been nasty yesterday. Or on Sunday, sorry.
Yeah. The safer barrier, I mean, I've seen firsthand things go into the safer barrier, and yeah, it's incredible what it's been able to withstand. Curiosity, because I don't know typically what the Brickyard runs on in temperature wise, because I know IndyCar sometimes gets kind of hot, but I mean, I've seen problems in the past where it's just so hot that the tires can't seem to keep together and they just blow up. Were they having issues like that, or it's just a matter of it's just a rough course for them in general?
It wasn't 08 Indy bad, but it seemed like once we got 20, 30 laps into a run, somebody would lose a right front tire and go into the wall. And what I think was happening is, with how hot it was, because it was a scorcher that day, it was really heating up that right front tire. And of course, that tire gets a lot of abuse going through those corners, and those tires were just giving up. But the hardest hit was Eric Jones. He was in the middle of the corner. All of a sudden the tire goes down and he just goes right, smacks the wall, and just tears the right side corner off of it. Thankfully, he's okay. If that's not a soft wall, that's a concussion. And 20 years ago, that's a fatality. And that's not even joking.
Easily.
Yeah. But when it comes to NASCAR, we talk about, we were talking about the older drivers when it came to Scott Dixon and IndyCar. In NASCAR, it seems like, despite the youth movement, the old veterans are still getting it done, because Denny Hamlin's up there in age, Kevin Harvick up there in age, still winning races, still on the top of the playoff standings, and they're going to be forced to reckon with when they get to the playoffs. What is it about these old guys that just make them so good at being able to drive race cars?
I don't know. I want to say part of it might just be with the advancements in training and being able to stay a little more on top of it. But I also think that a lot of these people, that there's just a passion unlike any other, and there are people who just have talent and just make it work, and there's people who use the talent and combine it with everything they've ever learned. And if you have any ounce of talent and you've been in the sport as long as some of these older drivers have been, I mean, there's no question as to why you shouldn't still be doing remarkable in the later years of your career compared to these youngins. The only thing that kind of counts against them is the technology changing a little faster than they may be used to. Thinking about what they drove in the first 5 years of their career compared to now would kind of blow our minds, I think, to an extent. But yeah, I mean, I think it's talent and taking all those years of learning and just putting it all in with your passion, and heck, let's win some races and some championships. I don't think anything can stop Dixon, by the way. I think that man is secretly like a ginger robot. I cannot see him stopping. Am I wrong? I mean, the man just like, his wife trains, he trains, they eat really healthy. Like, he does not look like he's in his 40s. You can kind of tell around his eyes a little bit, but aside from that, like, unstoppable.
I mean, he's still getting it done, and he's got a chance for a 6th title, and Harvick and Hamlin both have chances for their first titles in quite a while, which would mean a lot to both guys for very different reasons for each. But we'll be right back. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to discuss a serious situation involving Jimmie Johnson and Fernando Alonso coming back to Formula One for some reason. And will we actually have an audience for the Indy 500? We'll talk about this on the other side of the break here on the Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hi, I'm Brian McLaughlin. In the National Football League, there are approximately 17 million total fans.
I'm Andrew Guzman. My Dallas Cowboys make up almost 9 million of those fans.
And my Seahawks have a very loyal fan base of around 4 million.
That's more than 3/4 of all the fans.
That's absolutely correct, Andrew. And on the Common Ground Football Podcast, we'll be talking about the good, bad, and the ugly of these teams.
We'll have weekly picks, discuss transactions, injuries.
And we'll chat about the rest of the league, too.
Blake freaking Bortles?
Oh, yes. And Captain Andrew Luck.
Excellent. What about Fitzmagic?
Oh, let's not get carried away now.
Oh, all right, then.
Join us each week at commongroundfootballpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcast.
It's going to be
awesome.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want. here to give ya what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy, awesome white tea. They're coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
If you want to check out all of our great iSports Radio shows, make sure to keep it locked to our social medias on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, as we are back here on the Extra Mile here on iSports Radio. We're going to talk about we're going to start with a serious topic that actually happened this week, and thankfully, or last week, had thankfully a happy resolution. Jimmie Johnson was diagnosed with COVID-19 on Friday. This coming week, he took the 2 tests that came out negative, which means he gets to go back to race this week at Kentucky. The first thought when this news came out was, of course, with everything that's been happening in the last couple of weeks, it would be Jimmie Johnson to be the first NASCAR driver to catch COVID-19. Thankfully, it got out of his system quickly, which did it just go, is it a false negative, or is it 2 false negatives? Did he have it before? We don't know. The important part is he never had any symptoms and it's gone. But we knew the drivers weren't infallible, and the thing is that's so scary, Lita, is like a lot of other people have said, he did everything right and he still caught it.
Yeah, and that's I think the most interesting and intriguing part of this, because everybody's like, well, we have such a dichotomy of mask wearers and non-mask wearers, and even the state of Michigan actually in their email, and I actually tweeted a picture of this, but they actually put out a little chart that shows the difference in effect depending on whether you're wearing a mask or not, and if you're a carrier or not. Obviously, if you're exhibiting, and this is the hardest part of this whole thing that I think people aren't understanding, is you can have it and be sick and actually show and exhibit symptoms, and yes, we put you away and let you, ride it out for a little while. You stay away from everybody, and that should, resolve that problem. But that's not to say that you who feel fine at this present moment do not carry COVID-19 on you. And the only way to find out would be to test you, which, I mean, you know, it's kind of random. And how are you supposed to know? Like, it just happened that they did get tested and they did have it and they were not exhibiting symptoms. So, you know, people are like, well, I don't feel sick, so why should I wear it? That's the point, because you can feel fine and you can still have COVID and still pass it on and still be a contact point to make a lot of people sick. And it's not like they'll get a flu and have a fever for a few days. It's you get really sick, some of these people. It's not everybody. Some of us are lucky, but you get really sick. So the fact that Jimmie Johnson really did do everything to make sure that he was keeping safe and, you know, still managed to get it. If he's wearing masks and he's washing his hands and his family is taking all the precautions and he still gets it, what's to say that you and I in a situation also can't get it? And what's to say that anybody who does have it, like Jimmie Johnson, and doesn't happen to get tested and now go to a race and maybe they aren't doing everything they're supposed to, or are going to some place and they are doing what they're supposed to. However, there's still a chance that it can be passed. So it's the scary part of this whole thing, and it's incredibly unpredictable in that way. But I think it's good to have somebody who has been asymptomatic, who was doing everything right and still got sick and is influential in, you know, some celebrity status, to be able to go, hey, this happened and we did everything and I still got sick. So please, like, make sure you're doing your due diligence to not make others sick.
Hopefully,
I admire him for it. It was good that he did it.
Hopefully the NASCAR community will finally wake up now that one of their own has caught it, and they will go out and wear masks and they will socially distance. Because remember, the regular season at the dirt track that I cover, Hagerstown Speedway, basically got shut down due to issues with people not social distancing or wearing masks. They're trying to open back up for a race on August 16th. We'll see if that actually happens, but you gotta wear the mask, you gotta socially distance, or none of this is gonna get better. That's the only thing I can say.
Making sure you're washing your hands. Yeah, it's there's a whole lot of things, and yeah, I feel like a broken record along with a butt blanket about all of this, but I mean, it is what it is. So think of it, and so here's food for thought, and I know we'll get to this eventually, but think of what's happening with Jimmie Johnson. Now imagine that with the Indy 500 at the end of next month.
And let's talk about that Indy 500. We'll circle back to Alonso. Roger Penske made a lot of improvements to the speedway, as we saw with all the painting that they did to fix up the bathrooms, all the new television screens, the new road out front of the speedway that is now paved and not a dirt road. A lot of the parking lots got paved. He did a lot of work in preparation for fans coming to the speedway this year. And then COVID happens. Now they're they had to move the Indianapolis 500 from May to August. They've said the whole time they want to have fans. Roger has now said that they're pushing forward with their plans to have 50% capacity at the speedway. Do you think that is going to happen? And do you think it's a good idea? Because he does plan to, give hand sanitizer and masks out to everybody that comes to the speedway, but how do you make sure they use it? And are people that are coming from states where they're basically treating the existence of the disease like a political point, are they going to listen to what's going to be prescribed at the speedway, or are they just going to do their own thing and get a whole bunch of people sick anyway?
And so I feel in a way that I might be biased on this only because I have talked about it so much, but like my tickets, I'm a season ticket holder. I have seniority, so I get to renew every year. We had the option to either try to use our tickets for next month or use the money towards a credit for next year. And it was supposed to be my boyfriend's first Indy 500. My dad and I, it's our fifth one together, and we all were like, no. does help. My boyfriend's a microbiologist, so we discuss these things in depth a lot. But yeah, just the idea, it would be one thing if it was going to be a small group of people, but over 100,000 individuals in a place. And I mean, we've already seen the lack of care or caution surrounding this, even in grocery stores. So I think NASCAR did something right where they were only allowing so many people from a local area within a certain mileage point because it contains it. But in this case now, you're opening it up to people around the country. I'm not going to say probably the world, because I don't think anybody outside of the U.S. wants to travel here, especially now.
You can't even travel here to begin with, or anyway, so that'll help them, not that they want to come anyway.
But now you have over 100,000 people in a place where you're not going to have people walking around enforcing people to put their masks on, to wash their hands, to sanitize, to keep their distance. I mean, I walk around on Indy Grand Prix weekend, which has substantially less people, and you can still run into people and get up close. And you've got exponentially more individuals, and all of these people, if even one person messes this up, because remember, they're taking temperatures, but not all COVID carriers exhibit symptoms. Not all of them show fevers. So on top of it, if you don't have a fever, but you have COVID and you're there, you are now a risk to everybody there. And if that one person bumps into or happens to touch the same thing that 10 other people do, it's going to spiral out of control, and you send them back home, and it's not pretty. I personally think, with everything going on, it's irresponsible. And, you know, as a huge IndyCar fan and admirer of Roger Penske, I expect better, and I don't think it's okay. And even his quote from the Indy Star article this week, he said, everyone's getting their temperature taken. Everyone is being provided with a mask. Everyone is getting sanitizer. We're giving them the tools, and it's up to people individually and collectively to make the next step. So it's basically like, well, we gave you everything, so you can't come at us. So, like,
if we're going to judge
if you
this
get sick, you get sick.
If we're going to judge this by the past performances of people when we've left it up to do it if you want, it's just easier not to have fans. Because, again, going back to Hager, I don't like beating up on the Speedway, but this was my experience while I was there. The masks were temporary, or not temporary, but voluntary. It was me and like 4 other people that actually wore masks in a Speedway of about 1,500 people, not counting the logjam of people we had when the PA Sprint Week came in and Kyle Larson was on the property. So it's just a better idea to just cancel the race, or not cancel the race, but cancel having fans there. But I do have one question for Roger. Are y'all going to be selling those Indianapolis Motor Speedway face masks? Because I kind of want one.
I'm sure you can find it on eBay for $100 and something at some point.
Okay, well, I don't want it for that much. I don't want it that bad. But, well, I hope they put some up on the Indy website, because I will buy one quick, fast, and in a hurry, because we're going to be wearing these masks for a while.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I hope that they lessen the amount of people, or somebody stops it. I know that it's a big race. And I know that they really want to have.
Sorry, we keep interrupting. I'm sorry.
I know. I'll just say, I know they really want to have it in front of fans, but we just can't. We can't do that. It's not a good idea. We have cases increasing. We haven't really even finished the first wave. And if anything, this will contribute to the ongoing of this first wave or the launch into the second wave. And I don't think, as much as we need good PR for anything at this point, I don't think that's the kind of PR you want to put out there. Is IndyCar holds the Indy 500 and then sends, 700 people home with COVID. Not going to go well.
The Indiana governor has a hard decision to make going forward as we get closer to this event, and we'll see what happens. We have one more topic before we close up today, so we'll talk about this in the last couple of minutes. Fernando Alonso has decided that he's going to come back to Formula One with the Renault team in 2021. Alonso still believes he can win the World Drivers' Championship, and that might be true. I don't see him doing that with Renault, given their past performances. Lita, what do you think? Do you think Alonso's making a good decision, or should he have maybe gone another route for motorsport in 2021?
No, I see it as another nail in the irrevocable coffin of that is Alonso's Formula One career. I don't know why. I can understand if he's going back because he misses F1 and just wants to race. Awesome. Do it up, man. We support you. But there's just no way a championship is coming out of it. And if it does, for some reason, because he also signed a 2-year contract, so if it did happen for some reason, I will find a silly thing to do to eat my own words, but there's no way. And the only teams that could provide that for him, possibly, will never take him in. So I honestly think he should have went with something, any of the other things that he's tried, including maybe an IndyCar ride, which I think he could get a championship in easily. I just don't understand. Renault? Really?
I don't get it either. I feel like he should have... Look, I know he kind of burned the bridge with Honda when it came to,
he
the
didn't
McLaren.
burn it. He blew it to smithereens.
Yeah, he did. I know he destroyed that bridge, but going to IndyCar driving a Chevy would have been a much preferable choice to me than going and languishing in the bottom of the point scorers in IndyCar or in Formula One. Because unless Renault has something huge planned up for 2022, I don't know the end game here other than he just really wants to drive an F1 car again.
Well, he says to win a new championship. I don't know. And yeah, actually, I do want to point out too, not that Alonso is listening to our show of all things, but Chevrolet has done substantially well in both not only championships, but also winning the Indy 500 the last few years. So why not Chevy?
I mean, I'd rather go to Chevy than, deal with another terrible Formula One season where he's going to be complaining about GP2 engine because the Renault is not that fast, to be honest.
No, I think the McLarens are doing better than the Renaults, which is some sort of poetic irony in its own way, but unless Renault pulls something out of nowhere, it's happened before with other teams. I'm not saying they can do it, but maybe. We'll see. Everybody's had a lot of free time on their hands.
We'll see what happens. So before we leave, of course, we got to make our picks for nearest the win, and it is 4 races, 3 series. For IndyCar, you make a pick for one guy, you get him for both races. I am taking Dixon, Hamilton, and for NASCAR, Kyle Busch is on the pole. He hasn't had a very good season, which means Kyle is due for a win, but I don't think it's going to be this week. I'm going to take Kevin Harvick. Lita, you got any inklings on some picks for this weekend?
Let's see. For IndyCar, I didn't even think about this before we went about doing it. I feel bad. I'm just gonna throw Rossi out there because why not? Hopefully he has some better luck this weekend. I know there are better picks out there, but we're going to give Rossi some good luck maybe, or I just ruined his weekend. We'll do Rossi. I can't pick the same again in a row, so why am I blanking on it? Oh, we'll do Bottas, and then I don't know. Help me. We'll do Keselowski. I don't know. It's a shot in the dark, but everybody knows I'm terrible at this NASCAR thing, so why not?
Well, hey,
where's my help when I need it?
I know, right? Usually Couch is around, but Couch is actually out at a local kart track having some fun, so I hope he's enjoying himself. And hey, Lita, thank you so much for joining us. Follow her at Lalita Chemello to keep up with everything that she's doing on Twitter. Remember to keep in touch with IE Sports Radio by following our social medias on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And follow my Twitter as well at DKJunior12 and the Extra Mile IESR to keep up to date with what's going on with the Extra Mile. Or actually, it's at Extra Mile IESR to keep up with what's going on with the show. With that being said, for Lita, I'm Darryl. This has been the Extra Mile, and we will see you at the next green flag. Good night, everybody.